Check, 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 check. Pretty windy. Pretty windy. Anyway. Hey, everybody. KMO here. Doing my best to undo all the physical benefits of the months of physical labor that I just completed. So I'm doing no exercise at all, not walking, eating frozen pizza every day, and just doing everything in my power. Well, not everything. Not drinking every day because, one, I can't claim any particular willpower on this. It's just that I went to this art exhibition, or it's a permanent installation in what used to be a bowling alley here in Santa Fe. It's called Meow Wolf, and it's this very psychedelic, sort of loosely story-based art installation, and it was full of kids. And I haven't had elementary school kids living under my roof for many, many years now, and I'd forgotten. They're little germ-swapping machines, and I got sick. So I've had a sore throat, runny nose, feeling kind of tired, but I would feel less tired if I would actually get out and get some exercise. Anyway, for those of you who were attracted to the video title and don't give a shit about me, my circumstances, or what I've been doing, let's talk about democracy. So you're probably familiar with the acronyms DINO and RHINO, Democrat in name only and Republican in name only, and it's basically what you call a centrist if you're an extremist. Or if you don't understand that Republicans in New England are running for office in New England, and they're going to sound a lot like Democrats from, say, the Midwest, and they're going to be a bit left to the Democrats. They're going to be a bit left of Democrats in the South or in Texas, which, some people would think of the South. I don't think so. Texas, it's a whole nother country. No. Anyway, I was talking to a friend of mine. We recorded a podcast conversation, the first part of which is up in C-Realm Vault podcast episode 444, where we talk about the movie Avatar. Just use it as a springboard to launch into discussion of various sci-fi tropes. In the next episode, this bit's already recorded, but it was a long conversation, so I broke it up into 2 episodes. We're going to talk about social themes and the culture war and that sort of thing. But somewhere in there, I mentioned Curtis Yarvin, otherwise known as Mencius Moldbug, although he hasn't written under that name in, more than a decade, I think. But he's a monarchist, and he thinks that he's got some criticisms of democracy, and he's certainly not alone. Plato had criticisms of democracy, which he put into the mouth of his character Socrates. Socrates apparently was a real person, but, in Plato's dialogues, he's speaking for Plato. And Socrates, or Plato's criticism of democracy, was that it's a popularity contest, and the person who is the best able to curry favor with the masses isn't necessarily the best person to rule. Well, that should sound pretty familiar, right? Is the person who is best suited to pursue a 2-year-long, intense campaign with lots of travel and, lots of answering the same question over and over and over again and maintaining your cool, and basically exuding charisma even when you're not feeling it? Is such a person going to be the best person to craft policy? Or that person might well be qualified to represent the United States in negotiations with foreign leaders, because it is charisma-based, but it doesn't mean that they're the smartest person, and it certainly doesn't mean that they're the wisest person. And there's no reason to think that the person who is best at winning elections is going to be the best at crafting laws or administering the laws or, governing the country. So people who are in it for self-aggrandizement or for money or because powerful people put them up to it, they're as likely as wise people to assume power. Now, some people won't like this word, and maybe I'll even bleep it out because, maybe the algorithm would punish me for using it, but Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, later rebranded as Osho, he said of democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. Or maybe not in that order. But the problem is the people are retards. People are stupid. People are tribal. They are petty. And, as the founders of this country, who, for whom democracy was a dirty word, as they feared, if you give everybody a vote, the poor people are just going to vote themselves a free lunch. They're going to vote to redistribute the wealth of the wealthy, the natural aristocracy, the people who deserve to live better than you, and that'll be that. Then we'll just collapse into anarchy. Well, here we are going on 300 years later, and that hasn't happened. Well, why hasn't that happened? If we're a democracy, if all the retards who are broke because they're retards can every few years go to the polls and cast a vote for a representative who they're going to send to Washington, D.C. to redistribute the wealth, take it away from the wealthy people and give it to everybody else, why hasn't that happened? Well, could be that we have a democracy in name only. And typically when somebody says that, they say that American democracy is a sham, that the interests of the wealthy and the interests of big corporations and the top donors are well represented in the legislation that gets passed. And the interests of the normal people, the working people, basically have no influence whatsoever on how elected politicians vote on bills and how the laws are administered and how the courts render their decisions. Now, the courts are supposed to be independent of, the voters anyway, but, they say it as if it's a bad thing. But Plato thought that democracy would inevitably lead to dictatorship because you're going to get a powerful person who decides that while they got elected via democratic means, they want to stay in power and they are not going to tolerate any further elections. So, the fear when the Middle East was threatening to democratize back around 2011 was that you'd get one man, one vote, one time. You'd have one free and fair election, and then whoever won it would disband the electoral mechanisms and just stay in power forever. Why hasn't that happened here? Well, it could be that we have a democracy in name only, that it doesn't matter who you vote for, the interests of the power elite will be represented in Washington, D.C., and yours will not, and you can vote your heart out. I mean, you can vote till you're blue in the face, it just doesn't matter. Now, this is a more sophisticated form of authoritarianism in that it claims to be a democracy. It will talk all day about how it values, democratic norms and institutions and the rights of individuals to seek redress from their government. But that's all bullshit. And because it's bullshit, we have a more stable society and system of government. And as the obnoxious villain in one of the episodes of The Mandalorian said, people think they want freedom. What they really want is order. And when they know that we're back and that we can offer them order and safety, they'll welcome us with open arms. And Curtis Yarvin wrote something along those lines recently in response to an attack. I think it was a writer at the New York Times who, of course, quoted him out of context and actually did present Yarvin in an unfair light. I mean, you can present Curtis Yarvin in a totally fair light and he'll come off as villainous. If you're all for democracy, he's not. He thinks democracy is stupid. And I think he would probably agree, although I certainly haven't talked to him about it, much as I'd like to, that the United States, with all of its protestations, that it honors the democratic spirit, it has insulated itself from the effects of elections. And David Brin, science fiction author, who I can't say I know him well. I've met him on a couple of occasions and had him on the podcast once. He wrote one time and then, reiterated in conversation that Donald Trump couldn't derail the democratic institutions and the democratic trajectory of this country because of the professional bureaucracy. Which is to say, he didn't use those words, but, what's another word for people in power, people who wield government power, but who are not elected and who are not accountable to the electorate? Well, David Brin calls them the professional bureaucracy. People on the right call them the deep state. And so he didn't say it in so many words, but essentially David Brin was arguing that the power in this country does not lie in the hands of elected officials, even the president. It really lies in the hands of the deep state, which has its own agenda, its own priorities, and enormous inertia. So that, it doesn't matter how many times you vote to end war, dismantle the military-industrial complex, give health care to everybody. It's simply not going to happen until the elites want it to happen. Because we live in a democracy in name only. But that's a good thing, because if we didn't, if we lived in an actual democracy, we would have fallen to tyranny long ago. We would have elected a Caesar, and then he would have dismantled, the means by which somebody else could follow him into that seat of power. Now, I say that our system is more sophisticated because if you grab power by democratic means, if you're elected and then you cancel all future elections, well, you just painted a target on your ass. It's obvious where the power lies. You have the power to cancel elections. You have the power to keep yourself in office. You're probably stealing from the people left and right. It's obvious where the power lies. Whereas in our system, we elect these boobs who sit in office for 2, 4, 6, 8 years, or, in the case of Congress, decades. But the power is distributed. The official responsibility is distributed. And you can't really change the system by replacing one person in it, particularly not a person who holds elected office. The real power is in the hands of the oligarchs. The real power is in the hands, I don't want to say of the military exactly, because I think the United States is blessed with a military that I think considers it part of its honor, its military honor, that it does not interfere overtly in civilian politics. That it really is subordinate to the government. That the commander-in-chief, while he may not wield much power here domestically, does in fact, he is in fact the top dog of the military. Now, the military and the intelligence community certainly fought Donald Trump. They certainly did what they could to undermine his authority, his power, and to keep him from getting reelected. But again, the systems of power are widely distributed here, and they are hidden, and we are all encouraged to get really tribal and emotional and bent out of shape about elections that really don't make a whole lot of difference. Now, I know if if politics is your sport and you get really emotional about elections, and I'm saying, hey, it doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, the differences are cosmetic. You're probably going to be angry. And if so, hit that dislike button. Oh, you said something I disagree with. Fuck you. Fuck you. Whatever. I'll keep talking. So, comments, questions, encouragement, discouragement. Post it all below. And does it even matter? Does it? I mean, calls to action. I really do want to hear from you. I want to read your comments. So I'll say that, with honesty. The other stuff, like, subscribe, share, does it make a difference? I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you share this video or if you hit like. But thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.